And hello everyone, welcome back to a new video. So today we will be talking about programming for beginners. So if you have no experience whatsoever in programming, not even a little bit, even if you are bad at math or just don't know, even if you just want to get into programming and you want to see if it's for you, this video will then be for you, because you don't know about programming but you want to get into it, but you can't go and watch a big channel's programming because that might be out of your level. So let's get started. Now if we want to code, we have to download one thing and we have to install it as well. Unfortunately, we have to do that because Windows can automatically not run this. Of course, if you have Mac and Linux, you can follow along, no problem. So here we have our browser open and we can just type, let's see, Python. If you search for Python, it should be fairly easy to find it. Let's see, the first result is Python, and you can just click here on downloads and it will automatically take you to the downloads. As you can see, here are different options: Mac OS, Linux, other, but for me it's just Windows, so you can just say download. Don't worry if your download button doesn't say 3.9.1. if it is 3 point anything, then you can follow along with this course. Alright, and then once you have done that, you can literally just close the browser. You don't need it anymore. Then in your downloads, you will find a Python file, or a file with the name python.exe or .deb or whatever the specific operating system takes. And right here, you just have to say add Python 3.92 path, because that is how we can run Python. And then we can just install. Now, the only reason we need to install Python is because Windows cannot automatically run the code we write. So we have to download something that can run that code. So this will just basically run it. Easy as that. Alright, so while we wait, we can actually start setting up the project. Now here in Documents, we can just create a folder. And we can say New Folder. And we can just call this My Code. Now inside this folder, we can create a file. Now this file will be called whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it tutorial. And in this .text should be .py. If you can't see that .text, then you will have to go here to View and just say View File Name Extensions. Because if it's not enabled, this is what you'll see. You'll just see the name. But if it is enabled, which is if we click there, then it's going to say tutorial.py. It should say that. It shouldn't be tutorial.py.text. It should be tutorial.py. Now let's look how far this is. Alright, now here, while we wait for that, we can actually just open this in Notepad. So open with Notepad. Now if you don't have Notepad because you're using a different operating system, text edit or whatever should do, anything you can write text in and then save will work fine. Now take note, if you want to save, you can just go File and Save. But as you can see right there, you can just say Ctrl and S and it will save it for you without you needing to go here the whole time. That's what I'm going to press, Ctrl and S. Now let's see, let's just wait for this and then we'll get back to the video. Oh, never mind, very quickly. Alright, so Python was installed. Now one thing we have to do is we have to open the command prompt. Now here you can just type command prompt or just whatever. Now if you're on Mac, you will have the terminal. The same on Linux, you'll also have the terminal. Now to get to where you are, right here. So when we open up the command prompt, we are here in the computer. This is where we are. This is our home folder. This will be the same on Mac and Linux as well. Then you can just type cd, which means change directory or change folder. And you can say documents. This is still the same for Linux. I don't know about Mac. I don't know if they have documents folders. And then in Windows it's a backslash, but on Linux and on Mac it would be a /. So in Windows it's a backslash. And now if you say that, we are in, sorry about that, we are inside our documents. Alright, you're still with me? Then inside of our documents, as you can see, we have a My Code folder. So I can just say My, and it will automatically complete my code for me if I press tab. So now we are in my code. As easy as that. Now if we press enter, And just to make sure we're in the right folder, if I press dir on Linux and Mac, it should be ls. Then as you can see right here, tutorial.py. Now that we're in the same folder, we can close this file manager and we can start. Now the first thing I want you to take note of is this hashtag right here. This hashtag will not be read. So when you run the program, it's going to ignore everything that comes after that hashtag. So if I say some text, it's going to ignore that. It's not going to read that line. And in here, I can create another one. This is called a comment. It will be ignored. You know, it's like this white line. This line right here has no text on it, so it will be ignored. The same with a hashtag. This is basically a way to keep a comment, to tell people what you're doing. So in this case, printing text. And if I save this file and I try to run it with py and then the name of the file, so it will be tutorial.py. If you're on Linux or Mac, it might not be py, it may be Python or Python free. So just make sure you know which one it is. Try it out with all of them. Now if you don't have Python installed though, you can check if you have it installed by using -- version. If it returns the Python version, for in my case Python 3.9.1, you have Python installed. So you can do the same with Python, and if it talks version, as you can see, if I use Python it will also work, and Python free. And yeah, that's where it doesn't work. So for me, I can use both Py and Python and it will work, but I can't use Python free. Depending on your operating system, you can or cannot use Python or Python free. Anyway, so Py, and then just tutorial.py. If I run that, nothing's going to happen. That is because in here, in the code, let me just go there, I'm just having comments there. There's nothing special there. But look what happens if I don't put it inside a comment. Some text. Now, if I were to run this, it's going to tell me it doesn't know what some text means. That's why if you want to put something here to tell you what to do, you can use this to follow along with the tutorial. Keep yourself some notes while you're coding. But if I put it with a hashtag, as you can see, it will run with nothing as a problem. Okay, now that we know that, we can just remove this line of code. And now we can just start putting something on the screen, just some text. To do that, we can just say print, and then in brackets, and then in either single quotes or double quotes, we can say something such as hello. Now, if we were to print this out, as you can see, it gives us hello. So print basically just sends you back something. It sends you something so you can see it on the screen. So if you say hello, please talk to me, and then boom, you just created your first program, a program that tells you to please talk to them. Alright, so let's continue now. But this print can be used for more than just text. You can also use numbers. Now take note, this right here, that is not a number, that's text. If something is in a quotation mark or double quotes, it is seen as text. It's no longer a number or anything else, it's text. We'll see the difference between it in a second. Now if we run this, it's going to give you 2, but also if you remove these quotation marks and save it and then run it, it's also going to give you 2. Now what's the difference between having quotation marks and not? What's the difference between a text and a number? Now let's go and make this text again, and then we say plus and then another 2. Now remember, this 2 also has quotation marks. Now what do you expect to get from this? Well, if you expected 4, then unfortunately you got that incorrectly, but don't worry, everyone expects that if it's their first program. You will get 22. Why do you get 22? Because you cannot add text as a number. For example, you cannot plus hello with hello. If you plus hello with hello, what will you get? Hello, hello. But if you plus 2 but as text with 2 as text, then it's just going to be 2 and 2. It's the same kind of deal there. So in this case, if you want to add these together, you'll have to remove these quotation marks, and then it will see them as numbers. So if we run this, it's going to return 4 and not 22. Of course, if one has double quotes and the other doesn't, or single quotes or double quotes, then it's going to return an error because one is a number and the other one is not a number, and Python doesn't know what to do then. So just take that as note. Are you still holding on? If you're still keeping up, then I am proud of you, because we have just covered a pretty interesting topic. Now we can get into math. So we already know if we use plus, then it is going to add things together. So in this case 4. Just bring that back there. Now what if we wanted to subtract? So instead of saying 4 plus 2 in this case, which gives you 6, we want to say 4 minus 2. Well, then just type your minus or your dash, and then if you run it, you'll get a 2. Take note, you cannot really minus or subtract words. So if you try and do this with words, it's going to give you an error, because you cannot do the same thing with words as you can with numbers. If you want to times something, you know times, then you can use an asterisk, a star. It's right above the 8 on a normal keyboard from the US, you know, a QWERTY keyboard. It's right above the 8. That's an asterisk. And if you run that, you'll get 8, because 4 times 2 is 8. And you could also make it a lot bigger, so 4 times 22, and it will give you a bigger number, 88. If you want to divide something, so let's say you want to divide 25 by 5, then you can use a forward slash. Don't get confused between a forward slash and a backward slash. These two are actually different things in programming, and now you know why they exist on your keyboard, because you can use these things for different things in programming, which we'll not be getting into at the moment. Anyways, this forward slash means divide, so 25 divided by 5 will give you 5. Same thing if you do something that cannot divide naturally, so like 4.5 divided by 5, and it will give you 0.9, so it will still give you a fair answer. Now that's math. I just showed you the basics of math, and now you know, now you can go and get yourself a job at Google. Just kidding, but you're getting there. Someday you will. Now, what if we wanted to store a value? So you remember in math class you may have done some algebra. Now don't get scared. Just because I'm saying algebra does not mean you need to know algebra. I'll quickly explain it if you don't. So let's say you have x plus 3 and that is equal to 5. Now to work this out, you would say x is equal to 5 minus 3. You're basically sending this plus 3, you're sending that over to this side. But because you're sending it over, you have to subtract it. So now you will know x is equal to 2. That's fairly simple to understand. Now let's put that into code. So here I have a variable. This is called a variable. It's a container. This will contain some details, some numbers, some text, some whatever. And we say this x is equal to 2. Now let's quickly do this inside of our print. So print x. Now if we print x, then it's going to say x is 2. Why is that? That is because x is just a container. It contains something for us. So if I say x is not 2, but x is hello, then we can put it here. Now take note, this variable right here can basically be anything. So if you don't want x, you could even make this something such as some text. Just take note that variables cannot contain spaces, because then they are two different things. So if you want to make a variable and you want a space, I'd either recommend you using an underscore or making the next word start with a capital case like that. For Python, I like to use underscores. And then here, if you say some text, then if you print it out, it's still going to say hello. Now let's quickly change this back to x. And the same with this. Now, let's quickly do this equation right here. So, let's do this. Let's make x equal to 2. Now, if we say x plus 3, which is basically this right here, we should be receiving 5, like that. So let's quickly try it, and boom, we do get 5. Because remember, x is not a letter, it's not a word, it's nothing. X is now at this moment just a number. It's just something you can use a number in. There's reasons why we have variables. I'll actually give you a good example to why we would use variables. I just gave you an example right now, but let's get a better example. Let's say print, and let's say hello, or Josh is 18 years old. Next year, Josh would be 19 years old. Josh is very cool, even if he is 18 right now. Alright, now let's say I want to, or let's print this first. So as you can see, Josh is 18 years old. Next year, Josh would be 19 years old. Josh is very cool, even if he is 18 right now. Now, let's say Josh, we want to change the name. This story is nice and all, but Josh, that's not a good name for the character. Let's change it to Jack. Now we have to go change it here as well. Jack. And I have to go change it here as well. Jack. Now this is only 3 lines, and if you run it, it's going to give us Jack instead of Josh. But this is only 3 lines. But imagine if this story was like 1,000 lines long. You'd have to go and at each and every one of those points, you'll have to go and change the name from Josh to Jack. Now, that's not very fun, is it? Nobody likes to have to waste their time with that. So that's where a variable comes in. So let's say this variable is called name. And name is equal to Jack. So are you still following along? Now, with name, we can just do this. I'm going to say name, comma, and then we will continue. So if we print this, it's going to say Jack is 18 years old. Of course, you don't have to use a comma, but I find using commas a lot easier than actually adding these things. So as you say plus, you add a space there, then it's going to give you the same output, but using a comma is just generally easier, so I would like to use that instead. The same here. So instead of saying Jack, we can just do this, add a comma, name, comma, and just remove these spaces so the formatting stays nice. And then here, the same with Jack. Right here, we can now say name. And now if we print this, it's going to say Jack. Now, what if we wanted to, I don't know, change the name Jack? So let's say no, Josh was better. Now here in this variable, we can just say Josh. And guess what just happened? By changing one line of code, we have changed the entire story. Now instead of his name being Jack, it's Josh. And that's the power of variables. You can use variables to basically just make everything easier. As a beginner, you might not see the point in variables, but as you actually progress in programming, it will become super easy. So anyways, now my last part for this video, because I don't want to make it too long for you guys, is getting user input. So let's create a variable called username, and we make username equal to input. And here we say, please, there we go, please enter your username. And then we print username. Let's see what we will get. Alright, so let's say my name is Netsu, and there, it returns my name. Now we can actually make it cooler, and we can say, hello there. And then we can add this. Don't get confused by this. This is a comma inside of the text, so this is part of the text. This comma is outside the text, so it's not part of the text itself. So don't get confused there. And if we run this, please enter your name, Steve this time. Hello there, Steve. And that is the basics of programming. If you enjoyed what we did today, it means you might have potential to become the world's next programmer, the greatest programmer that ever survived or ever lived. So if you enjoyed what we did here, I have an entire course on everything we did right here, expanded and easier for beginners, right up there in the description, and it will be one of the pop-up boxes at the end of the video. It's called the Python Beginner Tutorial. You can go check out my playlist and you should be able to follow along quite easily. Thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed and can now code and impress your friends. See you all in the next video.